inside, let the fun begin. We've got Michel and Jimmy by our side. Special guest Juan Rivera. It's gonna be a wild ride. Welcome to the stream. It's time for some fun. Sit back, relax, join everyone. We're talking Microsoft Teams. Gonna learn a thing or two. So grab your popcorn. Let's dive right into.
Man, I love these AI
Cool.
generated intros. It's good to be back for Teams and Rooms Tech Talk. Jimmy, it's good to see you. We have a special guest, Juan. We'll introduce. I never know whether to look left or right. We'll introduce you in a second. Jimmy, good to be back.
It's great to be back Monday morning, and we were talking right before this. That's why we were late. Sorry, apologize for being late. But we were talking about all the things that we were doing with AI. And there's nothing better than that little intro that you put in right afterwards. I see some of the people were saying Michel's mixtape and things like that.
It's crazy. Juan, thanks so much for joining us this morning. I think you're dialing in live from Miami, so you're in Jimmy's time zone.
I am in Jimmy's time zone, and it's beautiful weather this year here in Miami. So all my fellow peeps in Redmond are a little jealous at the weather in Miami is the winter time.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Please, for the people that are not following you on LinkedIn or have no idea who you are, could you give the audience a brief introduction of who you are and what you do in Microsoft?
Yeah, so my name is Juan Rivera, and I lead the VP of Engineering for Microsoft Teams calling, meetings, and devices. So this group is the one who's responsible for delivering the Teams meeting experience, phones, as well as room systems. So everything around real-time collaboration. My team is the one who's been responsible for doing that.
Yeah.
Before that, I worked at Citrix Systems, and I did a lot of VDI work. Which, by the way, we're doing a lot of VDI work with Teams too. We have a new VDI. We can talk about that too. So yeah, I worked at Citrix for 20 some years, and then joined Microsoft. And I work remote, and as a result of COVID and ability to have a team distributed around the world and building the tools that enable that. And that's been really my biggest passion, is how do we build tools that can enable distributed remote workforce that can be as effective as if everybody's in the office. And how do we solve that problem? That's kind of like a mission I carry strong with me every day, and as we work on improving teams.
Yeah, good stuff. This is very much an Ask Me Anything session. So if you have any questions for Juan or Jimmy or myself, feel free to put those in the chat or the comments or wherever you're watching this from. I hate this part, but make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Juan would try to be influencers, but we're not too good at that. Make sure you like and subscribe and push that one button. We're not the best at that kind of stuff, but it's good to be here. Juan, new teams rolled out now officially 2 times faster for all the main tasks, 50% less resources. Tell me a little bit about how we've built that new app.
Yeah, so new teams introduces a whole new slew of improvements. It all started with 2 key things that we wanted to do. Number one was remove all the Angular V1 code to React, which was a massive. I mean, you basically have to rewrite everything that was written in Angular to React. That's a massive, massive lift. And the second thing was getting rid of Electron and use the next Web V2 that Microsoft built. That is much more efficient because a lot of the code actually runs natively rather than in JavaScript. So we can actually do a number of things more efficiently. But when it comes to Teams meetings, we actually did a number of things that were very important. Number one was we started looking at the way our native media engine and our web app communicate. And we had, during the pandemic, we grew so fast. We started doing a lot of things. It wasn't necessarily like the best interface. So we looked at all those interactions and we streamline all of that. And what that resulted was in a much more responsive app. Because sometimes if you get the wrong interface, the app may stop being responsive for a second, and they just feel sluggish. So it was just like, how do we make sure that the app at every point in time is responsive, and that those interactions are more efficiently done. And we're still doing a lot more work on how much work we do in native to make sure that we get the best performance, in particular on low-end devices. So we look at that. We look at like our entire rendering pipeline just to make sure. Like sometimes, for instance, one of the things that we did that I feel like is been the most impactful is we call meeting preheat. And what it does is when you go into the pre-join meeting, in the background, we're already joining the meeting. So those couple of seconds that you are kind of like looking at your camera, doing this and just getting ready, and you click join, you're already in the meeting. So, the perception is so much better because when you click join and then you see a stage, it's just like, less than a second. And we were able to kind of drop that, from like 15 seconds to 4 seconds. There's just massive improvements by doing all these different things. So, we're really proud of the work we've done on performance because we really put so much effort for new teams to make sure we got all those things done. And we continue to do. We have tons of new ideas on things that we're going to be doing to really improve performance. And our goal is very clear. Our goal is we're going to be number one performance-wise. We're gonna be better than Zoom, better than Google, and we have a clear target of where we need to go, where are the metrics where we need to hit, and we're just going after each of those one by one. So very exciting work. I think we have a good foundation to build on those things.
And Juan, I have a question for you. So you talked about the idea that you've got all these new ideas and everything else. How does the team actually come up with those ideas and sort of prioritize those, as this is important? I'm using the new teams. I hope that everybody that's actually here is using the new teams because I see the difference myself. And like you said, perception is 90% of the reality for so many people. Sometimes I know that, Michel, you, me, and even you, Juan, you get these questions or I have a bug and everything else. And it's like, no, you really don't. This is the way that it's supposed to work. But how do you guys come up with an idea and then say, hey, this is what we're going to work on and this is how we're going to put this as priority one?
Yeah. So, I tell him like there's 1,000 improvements that we can make in the product, but what are the ones that would have the most impact? And that's where we looked at the usage patterns, right? And when we say, this particular scenario, it's been hit by 80% of our users. So if I go and tackle this one, I'll have more impact than, let's say, if I tackle one scenario that is used by 5% of the users. So we use a lot of the usage data to help us prioritize where we're going to get the highest return on investment on those things. That's one thing. Second, there are things in the product that have to be reimagined. So for instance, one of the things I mentioned is, we have the media engine, and this media engine was originally the one used in the Skype application back in the day, right? And so when Teams was built initially, we just took that media engine and start kind of plug it in, right? And now we're looking at, okay, well, do we have the right responsibilities between what we do in native, between what we do on web? And if I were to start fresh, what would that look like? And if I wanted to go from where I am today to where we need to go, what is that path, right? And what's interesting about that is that, you don't have to really get, we talked about the team. It's like we don't have to go full native to be the best performing app in the market. We can be the best performing app in the market if we are doing the right balance between native and web. Because web, the good thing about web is that web can give us a type of UI experience that is a lot richer, more interactive than native. Natives, you have some limitations on that. So you have to kind of strike that balance. But so we go and do some experimentation. We do some prototypes. We see how much we can achieve, and then we go all in and implement those things. And I can't wait to get some of those things out in the product because we already kind of like have them in our early reads and we've seen those, and it's just going to be amazing. Like I'm super excited about the work we're doing around that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's jump into a couple of the questions. I hope I'm not messing up your name here, but Dara, I think, is WebAssembly used inside? And he has a great follow-up question,
Yeah.
which is in terms of performance, are you looking into going platform acceleration? For example, new Windows and ARM powered laptops that have efficiency core and built-in 5G,
Yeah.
e.g., a Lenovo
Okay.
X30.
Yeah. So okay. So Darren. So number one, I mentioned how we're moving some of this stuff into native. Then the question is, okay, what do I do on web, and how can I make sure that um, the work I do on web and native kind of stay the same? So a lot of the stuff that we mentioned that we're doing natively, those things can be implemented. Many of those things can be implemented on web using Wasm, and that allows us to reuse a lot of that code and a lot of those interfaces on web and achieve some of those performance benefits. Web will never be as performing as native, but we want to certainly be as competitive. And when I look at web, I say Google Meet, that's kind of my target. And then when I look at native, I look at Zoom as that's my target in terms of the level of performance that we want to achieve. One of the things I tell the team is like, I don't want a single conversation with customers where they bring performance as an issue between why they're using another product.
Yeah.
That should be erased from the conversation, and the conversation needs to be about the value, innovation, and all the new things that we're
Yeah.
doing. And I think we're in a very good position to do those things. Then the second question, I'll say, we are actually working on super interesting work, not only on Windows on ARM, but also even on Mac. We're actually working on a number of performance enhancements on Mac that leverage additional hardware acceleration that will soon be available in the product. So that's actually another area that we're very excited, is how do we make Mac, like a really, really fly as a product. So Teams on Mac is a big area of focus for us in terms of leveraging the GPU, the way we do screen sharing, and a number of areas that we want to make sure we leverage the best. And that will improve battery performance. That will improve just overall, user interactivity in the application. So
Yeah.
that's and one thing I tell the team is, as a Mac user, I want Mac to feel as a native Mac application. It's an app that was designed for Mac, not
Mm.
just a Windows app that happened to be ported to
Yeah.
Mac, because Mac users expect that type of experience. So we're doing a lot of little things to kind of make sure that app feels really, really, really native.
Yeah. Simone is saying, and I think we can tie this to another question, is CU's improvement indeed from V1 teams to V2, still consuming around 600 to 800 megabytes on idle. Is there I don't think we have to focus too much on the number itself, but is there a goal that you're trying to set for the idle usage of the application? And are there maybe external factors that also play a role in how much Teams is consuming? Could it be third-party apps? Could it be something else? How does this work?
Yeah. So let me give you a bit of a perspective on this, because there's always sort of trade-offs on things. But
Mhm.
when I look at the priority on how we look at the improvements, number one is interactivity. Number two is power consumption. And number three is memory, right? That's the order, right? Because, for instance, um, if I go and say, I'm not going to load the media engine until I start a meeting, then
Yep.
my interactivity for when the meeting shows up will be impacted versus I have that media engine ready to go and jump into the meeting, right? But that means that then my idle memory is higher. But I think when I look at memory, most devices, the amount of memory we use is not much of an issue. The real issue and the area that we focus on is in the lower end devices, and that in that lower end device we can deliver a very good experience. And then we have to be more cautious about our baseline memory usage and how do we improve that. But obviously, well, that also means some trade-offs. But it's important to kind of kind of understand, interactivity is number one. That's the most important one. I think that's probably be 70% of the focus. And power is, if I have a laptop that is supposed to last 9 hours, can that laptop last 9 hours if I'm in meetings, right? And it just not drain the battery in an hour or two. And that means I'm going to have to do a lot of stuff on the GPU, right? And move a lot of this video processing, a lot of the AI, just a lot of stuff that we do, move it to the GPU away from the CPU, and then kind of figure out a way to balance those things. And then memory being the third sort of, and we track all of them. And we do baselining and comparisons and competitive analysis, just kind of see where we stand in terms of the product. But in many cases, there are trade-offs that we have to make sure that we can deliver the experience that users want.
And you hit that nail on the head, Juan, because it's idle doesn't mean that it's idle because of all the things that we're doing. We're doing a ton around AI right now with Copilot, with different things where we're anticipating what you're going to do. And that only adds to this. So I think your answer is perfectly reasonable. Of sometimes there's trade-offs. Just because you think that it's idle doesn't mean that we are actually idle in the background. We're using resources to try to help the performance and help you in what we think you're going to do in the future.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing. Like go from the video space where this is super sensitive. If we have any customers here from the video space, very well. You're trying to run multiple users on the same VM. How much idle memory. And all those things are, very, very, very important. We actually been working on a new VDI architecture that will be available in the new teams that addresses a number of areas for the product. And again, this is another area, performance-wise and reliability and all those things that we are sort of reimagining in the product to make sure that we meet the needs and expectations from customers. And you have to take into consideration those things. What is the idle memory? Are we doing all those trade-offs? You have a lot of knobs that you can adjust, right, to make sure you get that. And just making sure that for VDI, for lower-end devices, for desktops, for high-end laptops, and so on, you have the right settings to get the best possible experience out of that hardware configuration.
Yeah, Jimmy asked you a question about how do you pick the new features. Piece of feedback from a friend of the show, a friend in general, by the way. Say hi to the missus, Mo. Mo is saying, I kind of missed the user voice pages. It was good to see what the feedback and requests were. And this ties in with an earlier question that we got is, how do we, what's the right way to submit a feature request? He's asking it for Teams Rooms, but I think we can kind of answer this in general. With user pages or user voice not being there anymore, what's the best way for people to suggest new features?
I think there's different channels. Some more formal than others. You go through your your sales representative that you can have conversations with them. We have some forums where you can post feedback. I actually loved, I'm very active on Twitter. My Twitter tag is Juan Microsoft. And if you have any feedback, send it to me. Just write it down. But I'll tell you.
Oh boy, Juan.
I'll tell you. No, actually, I love that. One of the things that I tell my team is I want our engineering team to be very, very close to our customers and understand their pain points and feel them closely. And because sometimes, in large organizations, you can get a little bit disconnected and not always you feel the pain. And I want to make sure that all you guys, that our team really knows where those pain points are, to make sure that we can really meet your needs. So help me stay grounded in the things that we do. Call it out, call it BS to some of the things we do. Just send me the feedback. I'll appreciate that very much. I think it's this is a partnership, and I love that ability to have that open communication between the teams. But let me tell you one thing about features and some of the challenges that we have, because Teams has tons and tons of features we built over the past few years, lots and lots of features. And then we start running into issues where people are not finding those features. They're not really able to be even aware of them. And then you end up with features that on paper, they look great, then usage is not as much as you expected. So for me, one of the things that is top of mind is, okay, how do I bubble this value to customers in a way that is in context, that a way that is relevant to that point in the meeting or whatever they're doing, that makes the most sense. And solving that problem, for me, it is top of mind, because if you have all those features but people are not really using them, then you're not really getting the return from that investment. Your customers are not realizing the full value of the product. So that aspect of simplification and making sure that those things are relevant and in context is a big aspect to how we think about features that we are trying to make available to customers.
And speaking of the features, one, I saw you post on Twitter, because I do follow you on Twitter, about the new feature that actually comes under Windows 11, where your Teams meeting starts under the start menu. Can you describe a little bit about your workflow? Because for me, I tend to not go there.
Yeah. So it's a good question.
I might not be the typical user at that point. I'm not sure.
It's a good question, and in most instances, the ideal way that you should join a meeting is through meeting start notification, right? You see the meeting start notification, and in one click, you join the meeting,
Yep.
right? But if you're the first one to join the meeting, then the number of clicks that you have to do to get to the meeting, right?
Okay. Yep.
So if you're the first one, just go to start and you're going to see it. And it's 2 clicks, start and the meeting. If you were to do it today, you have to click Teams,
4,
go to calendar, and then find meeting, so you have to do a couple of those clicks. And this is just another way where you can make it available. I would say, I want to take the opportunity to mention, the work we're doing with Windows to really bring the experience of Teams to be more native into Windows. And one example, in fact, I'd say one of my favorite features is, and we call it share on air, which is, if I want to share the content of a window, instead of going to the share tray in my meetings window, I can go to that icon in the taskbar, and then I can see a button that says share. And the reason I find that super valuable is that sharing the desktop is actually not ideal. You could end up embarrassing yourself, sharing some content that you shouldn't have shared, because everything in the desktop will be shared, right? If you move a window and there's something, and when the ideal thing is to share the specific window that you want to share. And the fastest, easiest way to do that is through the taskbar. So that's an example of an integration we've done with Windows that really makes it easier, because we couldn't deliver that exact experience on inside Teams. We also have a mute button also in the tray bar for Windows. So that's one aspect, and we also look into how we can do those same things on Mac. But obviously with Windows, we do a lot of this collaboration with the Windows team.
Yeah, I love using that share button in the taskbar. I'm happy that you're confirming that it's coming to new teams as well, because I don't think we've shipped that yet. So in classic teams, already available, coming soon, I think, in one of your rings.
Yeah, it's already in progression. It's already coming in. Yeah.
I can see that you have a couple of people that are about to spam your X account or Twitter account. And I must say, Juan, I think that's what I like about you, and I like about people like Ilya as well. And Ilya is one of Jimmy's best friend, because they both play Pokemon, but also a friend of the show. You are very open to feedback from anyone. I see a question here from Kehinda on YouTube. When is Google Meet Direct Join on Teams Rooms going to launch? That's a great question to ask Ilya, because we're going to have Ilya live from ISE in Barcelona next week. If you go to the YouTube channel, there is a link there to that stream already, so you can get notified. I'll tell a brief fun story, because this question was asked last time at ISE, and we weren't, Jimmy, you remember this.
Yeah.
So we do live Ask Me Anything with Ilya. And 150 people around the Microsoft booth at ISE, which is one of the biggest shows in our industry. And people ask, so when is Google Meet Direct Guest Join coming to Teams Rooms? And Ilya's like, we want to do it, but the best thing to do is just ask the Google guys. And we almost sent 150 people straight to the Google booth at ISE. That would have been something to watch, I think.
I want to take the opportunity to talk about a very cool project we recently launched. It's called Project Lime, and it stands for lightweight meeting experience. So, um, we were doing this. We did this initially for Cisco devices. We launched this in November, I think it was. Um, and before, if you're on a Cisco device, you join a Teams meeting. We have to load the entire meetings client, and in some instances, it will take 30 seconds to a minute to get that experience available. So what we did was we created this lightweight meeting experience that could deliver the meeting experience in less than 8 seconds. So with Lime, when you're on a Cisco device, you join a meeting, you load this Lime experience. It's a very snappy, much faster experience than in the past. And this same framework where we basically look at all the package, all the code that we load in Teams and say, what is the absolute minimum that we need to do to load a meeting? And then everything else we can do lazy load for more advanced features, and do that so that you can get the fastest possible experience when you join a meeting. And we started with devices. I'm very excited about what we did with Cisco. But we are looking at expanding that to other use cases where you might be a user, you don't have Teams, but you're invited to a Teams meeting. You are on, let's say, Firefox or Safari, just some of those browsers, and it's just how do we get into meeting very, very quickly, very reliably. And that's another project that we've done to really improve on that aspect of interoperability in our product.
Mm. I love how we're showing that we understand that a workplace needs to be smart, it needs to be fast, and it needs to be simple. And I think that's what new
Mhm.
teams is really showing
Yeah.
to our customers.
And I'll say, and one thing I'll say too is reliability. Like we've been putting a lot of effort to make sure that all these scenarios were 99.9 above, and some of them even 4.9s. Like massive, massive effort on reliability. And I remind my team about, like, we have obligations and opportunities, and we have tons of obligations. We have 300 plus million users that are actively using our product. We owe to them to make sure the product is fast, reliable, responsive, simple. And that by itself takes a huge amount of our efforts. And there's no point of us going to do more chasing new fancy things when our customers are not taken care of. And when I talk to all of you guys about feedback to me and keeping us grounded, that's the kind of thing I want to hear. Is tell me what's not working. Tell me the things we're not meeting your expectation, because that to me is number one job, is our key obligation to all of you. You bet on us. We owe to you to make sure the product is successful and it's like your users are happy with it.
Nice. Here's one for you then.
You got a good one here, Juan.
Yeah, we'll jump into a couple of questions before. Of course, we want to talk Copilot in a second as well. Super pain point: new teams in Edge on Linux. Audio with certified devices is a mess. Not sure if you want to say anything about it or if it's noted.
I'll take note of this. I'm assuming this is just browser. This is we call the
That's what
PWA,
it sounds like.
Progressive
Yeah.
Web App on Linux, and this is using the WebRTC engine. I'll take note of that. But yeah, thank you for the feedback. There's some of these scenarios that we need to do. We need to make sure that we have a good coverage on the product.
Yes, Anders is saying, when will the banner to classic users about new teams start to show up exactly? Message Center says February, but that's not an exact date. I think it's important to talk about when can you switch, how will you be notified to switch, how long can you switch back, and then when's the cutoff date when everybody's gonna be moved to new teams.
Yeah, this actually will be a long discussion. But one thing I'll do, I'm gonna follow up because there should be a blog post that shows the timelines for this, where there's different tiers of customers that they're gonna have the option. Usually, as an admin, you have the option to say show it, and then you can do the hard switch. The key dates that's most important is when teams one won't be available,
Yeah.
right? When then you're forced to the new teams, and that transition period is not available. But I also want to take, Andres, I'm going to take opportunity to talk about the MC post. Um, when I first joined two and a half years ago, our accuracy in MC post, basically when we say this is going to be in this date, and then we actually hit it, was about 20-25%. We're now hitting 80 plus percent, or close to 90%, making sure that when we say this feature is going to be this month, it is available that month, that you can actually trust what we're putting on those MC posts. And that was actually an area of a lot of complaints from customers, that we want to make sure that our communication to you, it was accurate. And the way I represent this to the entire Teams organization is, you got to look at the IT admin as our partner. They are deploying a product. They're part of the solution. And we need to have accurate and continuous conversation with them so that they can do their role successfully. If our MC posts are inaccurate, how do you expect them to do a good job? So we really, rally the entire Teams organization, and I hope you guys have noticed this. But we're being like super, super consistent. In fact, right after this call, I have a review with the team who does that, because we do like twice a month, a review on all the posts and make sure everything is accurate. And if something goes off rails, I go and do a specific review with that team. What the heck happened? Why we didn't land this on the month that we announced? So it is, for me, it's a super, super important communication tool to make sure that you guys can do the job successfully, and make sure that your users are not surprised with things that then you're blindsided by, oh, this light up and didn't know, or I communicated this was coming out and it didn't, right? So that was important aspect for us to pay close attention to.
So I'll take this question from Nicholas. When will it be possible to do? This is the recurring question we get every show.
Same thing.
Be possible to do custom theming for Teams rooms on Android, and if so, when? Yes, coming soon. It's finally on the roadmap. You should see that in the next couple of months. I think that's good news. It would be great, Jimmy, to just get this question out of the way. Because it keeps coming
And I think it goes towards the development side. I want to just take a second to talk about MTR. MTR on Windows, you sometimes get things for free. Android, you don't. One of those things that's on Android that is locked down is the ability to actually put in files like image files and things like that. So the team is actually developing ways that we can do that. But that's one of the things that extends from one OS to another OS. But we are going to do the custom theming on MTRA. It has been committed from the product group. Once we get it, to Juan's point about being accurate and straightforward, it will be on the roadmap. You'll be able to see it either on the NDA roadmap if you attend sessions with Michel and I, or it will be on the public roadmap. Once it hits the public roadmap, that's a definitive date. They're usually pretty good about those dates too. So it's very high accuracy that we get on those dates as well. So it's great.
I want to take an opportunity to talk about MTRA, because MTRA is really, really top of mind for me and the team. So one of the things Jimmy mentioned, so there's certain things that we get for free on Windows. There's a lot of more infrastructure to facilitate certain things, and then MTRA is kind of coming and catching up with a lot of things. So I want to say, number one, we're very, very committed to MTRA to be a first-class citizen with all the capabilities as of MTRW. So, you shouldn't have to choose one versus the other in terms of capabilities. And we understand there are a couple of areas that are, there are gaps that exist today. In particular, for me, one of the key things is the ability to roll out updates into those devices. So, Teams, in fact, I say, if there's one thing that Teams got right from the get-go that really allowed us to be where we are today, is that we said to IT, on Teams, we're going to manage the updates. We're going to be in control of when the new bits land into the device, because that changes the way we can deliver the product. And I know initially there was a lot of push from IT, a lot of those things. But in the situations where we do that, we are in a better position to serve our customers, and we have a lot more success. And there were two particular places where we didn't do this correctly, was MTRA and VDI. And in both of them, we're actively working to close those gaps just to make sure that we can innovate fast. We have, if you have an issue, we can push the fix right away. Even if before you see there's a problem, we have a fix. All those things, and have that in the product is super, super, super important for the product, and we're putting a lot of effort on that. But number two is the roadmap capabilities, just making sure that when it comes to MTRA, we have the rich capabilities that you see on Windows. And I actually like the Android ecosystem, the richness of products and innovation that's happening in the market. And we really want to take advantage of all that work that's happening with our partners, and be able to make sure that customers can deploy those devices in rooms and get the best experience from Teams. So just want to say that, because we really putting a lot of effort on that.
Yeah, Sasha's asking for a template tool to create backgrounds less complex according to our needs. Send Jimmy or myself a message on LinkedIn, and we'll get you the template. It is out there. It's a little bit hidden. Sometimes Microsoft is like, I always call it an Easter basket. There's so many great Easter eggs, but they're hidden all around the company. And sometimes we just need to.
I've run out of favorites, Juan. I've run out of favorites on my at this point. There's so many different places to get to.
Bo wants to join Teams in his Tesla.
Yes. So we initially looked at this, and it's a similar story what I was mentioning about Cisco devices. It was very slow to load. I wasn't quite ready. Lime offers a possibility for doing this. I cannot tell you, this is not published in the roadmap or when this is going to come. But I'll say Lime is a framework that enables us to make Teams meetings available in a wide range of devices, in particular low-end devices, so you can get that snappy, quick experience for Teams. So that's the extent of what I can say. We have now the framework that allows us to do this.
Mo, he's not saying no. That's what I heard.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit in the final few minutes. Let's talk a little bit about Copilot. Everybody's seen the amazing marketing videos that we've released. I think many of our customers are starting to experiment with Copilot. Of course, last week, the big announcement, how we open it up also to companies that are a little bit smaller. So for basically everyone with one seat and up can now start using Copilot. What has your experience been like, Juan, with Copilot, both for Microsoft 365, but also Copilot, formerly known as Bing Chat Enterprise? How much of a difference is it making in your day-to-day work?
Okay, so I was one of the few who we started working on Copilot before even GPT was out. So months before that, and it was sort of kind of, holy crap, this is gonna be game changer.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you the moment when I use Copilot, I said, holy crap, this is just next level. So how Copilot and meetings Copilot, you know how you can do, hey, give me a summary of the meeting, all that. We know all that very well. But there was one instance where I was in a meeting with my boss, and it was just kind of staff meeting, and they were talking about something, and I was just kind of multitasking to something else. And I kind of realized, there's a question coming my way. I don't know what she's talking about. I said, hey, what is she talking about this? And then Copilot said, she wants to know about this, and that. So when the question landed, I knew exactly what. I was like, man, this thing saved my ass. This is game changer. For me, it was just,
I use that all the time too, Juan. It's one of the greatest features that I love too.
Yeah, but I'll tell you a little bit about AI, because for me, I've done enterprise software for the longest time, and when we moved from on-prem to cloud back in the 2010, a lot of our engineers started making that move. It was transformational, right? Like they said, like, there's no way I'll do on-prem software again. Like, it's just a different way of doing software. What we're doing with AI, it just changes the equation again, and everything that we're looking at, and it's the opportunities that AI brings, it starts challenging a lot of the traditional ways of how software is delivered, how you build software, how the experience is. So this is going to change the product in ways that even us, we still haven't fully figured out, but we know it's going to be dramatic. Um, and I say, like, the stuff that we actually prototyping and testing is mind blowing. And I say this LLM technology is super interesting. And we know that, it's going to get faster, it's going to get cheaper, it's going to get more accessible. You start talking about, you do stuff in the cloud, now you start thinking about devices with AI capabilities that can do those on the device itself, and the wide range of capabilities. This is going to be transformational, and we're now starting to really going through that effort. And I say AI is going to drive a lot of our roadmap moving forward, because now there are things that, even as you think about what the product needs to do, it's like, holy crap, but now that we can do this AI, there's other things that are going to be even more impactful, that those little incremental things that we can do in the product, and those are going to be that's going to change the equation for the industry, not just Microsoft. This is across the board.
I remember a couple of months ago, you showed me something that you created during the hackathon.
Mhm.
Uh, is that something that's actually going to happen?
Yeah, we have some
You
stuff
know
that
what I'm talking about, right?
we have. Yeah. So we
Yeah.
have some interesting things. I mean, unfortunately, man, I cannot give you
No, no,
details.
it's all good. We'll refer back to this show once that is out.
Yeah. But like I said, this is gonna the AI can really redefine how collaboration works, how people collaborate, how effective they are, and ultimately how productive they are, right? And that is sort of the 10x factor in the way we think about the impact that AI is going to have in product and in businesses. So we want to seize that. We want to really be able to lead the way around that, and so it's going to be very, very exciting roadmap, and it's moving. This thing is moving really, really fast. This is in a really fast pace development these days, and it's everybody. All our competitors are looking at this as well.
But one, before we even came on, we talked a little bit about how we're using it in personal life too. We all are active on social media. We create images, we create posts, and that time savings transfers not only in our posting using AI, but it also translates to the business.
Yeah.
And for the license that people are paying for Copilot, I mean, I came in shortly after you did on the GPT side to sort of witness what was going on. Michelle and I last year were doing shows about Copilot before we even knew what was going on. But I
Yeah.
can't wait for people to really see what you are talking about, because it sort of helps everybody in their journey of daily work.
Yeah, I'll say this, and I tell this to everybody, whether you're in the industry or outside the industry, is getting good at prompting.
Yeah.
It's a super important skill. When I have a son, he's 20 something now. When he was like in 10, 12 years, he'll ask me a question. What, Dad, how do I do this? And I said to him, did you Google it? I say, no, Google it. And if you cannot find it, then I'll help you know how to write the right query in Google, so you learn how to find. So my effort was like, you need to learn how to find yourself stuff on your own, right? So for him to be really good at searching in Google, right? And all of us can say, we have developed that skill over the years because we use Google so much, or Bing for searching. But now this is the next one. It's like, hey, if I want to accomplish something, what is the right prompt that I need to do to get that outcome, right? Whether it is in Bing Chat or Biz Chat or in the Copilot, all those. Now your question is, how do I get really good at getting the outcome that I want to get? And I say the key of this is practice. Is practice. Just like searching in Google, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So really practicing on this and really seeing the limits and how you write those queries or those prompts can really give you an edge at productivity, right? That now you can get something done much faster than before. So those who spend the time getting good at prompts are going to gain an advantage, a competitive advantage as professionals, as they're being able to be way more productive. So learning these skills is so, so important. And if you have kids, So they need to learn how to write
Oh
prompts.
yeah.
This is the next sort of Google skill that you need to do to be effective.
And as you work with these co-pilots, make it a conversation, right? Don't just stop after one question, and then try things of which you might think this will probably not work. I was inspired by Jared last week, Spataro. He posted a video, I think, across all the channels, and he asked Copilot in Teams, and he said, please create 5 to 6 categories on which I've spent my time in the last 2 months in regards to meetings, and then show me why you've created these categories, and then also give me an advice on how I should reprioritize my time. That's stuff that I hadn't thought about before. So I started playing around with this, and I still so we've been privileged to work with Copilot for what
Yeah.
6 to 7 months now, and Juan, you even longer. There's not a week that goes by where I'm not like mind blown, like, oh wow, it can do this as well.
Yeah.
But even the idea that Michelle that you sort of taught me to do about the idea of asking the LLM or the AI to actually ask questions of me while it's going through that process, that can be beneficial as well, because the LLM might not actually know what you're talking about, but by asking questions and having that conversation with it, it actually starts to get better. I've used it personally. I actually used it the other day to create a rule in Outlook with anything with an unsubscribe button on the bottom. Now that goes to actually its own folder, so that when I'm away from work and I get the hundreds, if not thousands, of a distribution list that we get here at Microsoft, now I don't have to scroll through those. It's in another folder by itself. So those are the kind of things that we can think about. I'm not necessarily an expert in where to go in Outlook for all of these settings, but the LLM can help me and lead my way to find
that, you know, what you mentioned, Jimmy, is really, it captures sort of the opportunity of being able to leverage the richness of the products through ways that are different to the traditional menus and options, where
Right.
you know, you have to sort of become a master with all these things versus, you know, I'm just looking for an outcome. Let the AI figure things out for me. I'm just going to use my imagination of what I want to do. And you know what? You're going to keep getting surprised and surprised and surprised about things that you thought that couldn't be figured out by the AI, and the AI guess is able to do. So push them to the limits and see how far you can go. And I say you'll be pleasantly surprised. For
I have that with Excel. I think I'm good with numbers. I'm really not good with finding the right graph and creating visualization. I never know where to go, right? Is it under insert? Is it under data? Sometimes I have to go to YouTube to find out how I do certain things in Excel. Now I just ask Copilot to do it for me, and then within a couple of seconds, it's right there. So no, it's like I said, it's still blowing my mind every week.
yeah, you sort of have to embed it into your daily workflow. It needs to be sort of kind of, you're constantly interacting with it. The more you use it, the better you get at it, and it's all for the best. It's all for the best.
Good stuff. Let's wrap this one up. Juan, thanks so much for joining us today. We had a ball. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Everyone, thanks for watching. Next week, Jimmy and I, alongside many of our friends, will be at ISC in Barcelona. We're going to be doing more than 10 live streams. A couple of those are with the engineering team. So we'll have Ilya Buckstein, we'll have Sanjay Rao, and we'll have Greg Barabolt on at one of the streams next week. So make sure you go to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe. I did it again, Jimmy. Like and subscribe, and then we're looking forward to seeing you next week at ISC. Thanks, Juan.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you for
Thank
joining. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.